Let's just turn once again to the thought of Ukraine and where it sits outside NATO at the match, but very much wanting to be inside. Dr. Alan Mendoza is the Executive Director at the foreign policy think tank, the Henry Jackson Society. Alan Mendoza, welcome to our coverage. It's the President making it quite clear Ukraine can't join just now, but they have to sound encouraging, don't they?
Oh, of course they have to sound encouraging, and I think they are encouraging. Although they're saying you can't join now, there's a reason for that. Obviously, if Ukraine was to join now, it would be subject to, obviously, the collective defence provisions of NATO, and that would mean we're essentially plunging fully into the war with Russia rather than doing so in the shadow way we've done so far. So I think everyone understands the reality of the situation, which is that we've got to have Ukraine in NATO once this conflict is over, but it cannot happen, obviously, right now.
When do you think the time is right? The war's got to end first, I would suggest. Is that about right?
Yes, absolutely, or at least got to a stage where it's not anymore deemed to be a conflict on the scale of what it is right now. But absolutely, it'll have to be at the end of the conflict, hopefully when, of course, Ukraine has recovered its territory and gotten to a stage where it's in a position to actually start to rebuild and then play a bigger role within its hopeful new alliance partnership.
Do you think that this particular NATO summit, however, might overcome the Sweden conundrum? Because Finland's joined, Sweden wants to join, Turkey is standing in the way. How do they square that one?
Well, I would hope that now the Turkish election is firmly in the rearview mirror, and Mr. Erdogan doesn't need to posture to his domestic audience. That kind of sense prevails. And yes, of course, the Turks have had issue with PKK as sort of suggested terrorist sympathisers in Sweden. But Turkey is fairly pragmatic actually when it comes down to making deals. You've seen deals in the past few years which didn't look like they'd happen, and suddenly they occurred because Mr. Erdogan fundamentally is a pragmatic politician. So my guess is that they will hopefully get across the line at this summit, something will be agreed, and the Turks will withdraw their opposition and indeed allow Sweden to play its role in securing NATO's northern border.
Those Azov-style fighters, for instance, Turkey had been given them to look after by Russia, and they gave them back to Ukraine at the weekend. Do you think that was something... This is another indication of Mr. Erdogan's sort of independence? He's not doing exactly what Russia wants all the time?
Oh yeah, this is very much part of his game, basically. He's an independent power broker in his view, and let's not forget that he stood up to Russia in the past on many an occasion, notably when, of course, a Russian jet was shot down by Turkey over the Syrian conflict. And so he's not afraid of making his point, I think, and if he feels this was the right thing to do, he'll have told Mr. Putin that he's doing it come what may.